Good morning, everybody. My name is Hayley Wright, and I'm delighted to be joining you here for the 10th Central Asia Trade Forum today, and our virtual session on regional cooperation and tourism recovery in Central Asia. I would like to extend a warm welcome to everyone who's joined us today. Our live panel session is bringing together local and global tourism experts to discuss the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on regional tourism, and also to discuss potential solutions to restart and rebuild the tourism industry. We would like to thank the Central Asian governments for their interest and also participation in this forum. Before we commence, I would like to share a few housekeeping notes with you. So first of all, the event is being recorded, and you will be able to view it at the end of each day on the forum's website and also our YouTube channel. Our support team is going to drop the links into the chat box for you. Secondly, all event participants joining us are muted to avoid disruptions. And the panelists, we ask you kindly to stay muted until it is your turn to speak, and then you may unmute yourselves. We also do recommend that you keep your camera switched off when you are not speaking in order to keep a smooth connection. And if you are happy to do so, of course, please do switch your camera on when you are presenting and speaking. The third point, there is simultaneous interpretation available during the event. So if you haven't switched this on, please look at the little globe sign at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You can choose which audio feed you would like to listen to, English or Russian. Please note this function is only working if you have downloaded the Zoom app. And for those of you that do not or cannot download the application, rather than the browser version, there are also separate YouTube channels in English and Russian. And our technical team will drop a link to the and fourthly, there is a live tech support chat box on the forum's website. So attendees are also welcome to use the chat box throughout the event for any technical issues. And at the same time, if you have any questions during the forum, we also invite you to put those in the Q&A box or the chat box on the site. So thank you very much for your attention to those points. And so as an introduction, my name is Hayley. I'm a director and founder of tour operator Black in Montenegro and cooperating on the development of cross-border sustainable tourism in the Western Balkans region. I also spent some years living in Russia, and it was my pleasure during that time to visit Central Asia, where the hospitality, the culture, and the landscapes were simply unforgettable. So the past 9 months have brought the most challenging time in history for our industry. The Tbilisi Declaration for Sustainable Tourism, which was drafted in September this year by the Executive Council of the UN, recognized tourism as one of the worst affected of all sectors by this pandemic, and has identified the global standstill as a chance to realign the sector towards a more sustainable and inclusive future. The Secretary General, Zura Polo-Likashvili, has highlighted the important role which tourism plays in every part of our lives, saying that we need to work together to build a tourism sector that works for everyone, where sustainability and innovation are part of everything we do. So global industry collaborations are leading the way in our recovery. For example, the World Travel and Tourism Council's Safe Travel stamp is providing a framework for destinations to the confidence in travel. And at a regional level, collaborations are equally important by sharing knowledge and expertise, and by developing and implementing unilateral policies and protocols. Regions who are united will surely empower a stronger recovery. It's also important for us to remember that the road to recovery is not just a top-down approach. Governments and the public sector and the global tourism industry bodies are working on unified strategies. However, the voice of tourism private sector in listening to, understanding and conveying the concerns and the new needs of both travellers and host communities. We do have a unique and unprecedented opportunity to reset what we do, so let's do it right. I'm really pleased to welcome our panelists today, and I'm going to introduce them one by one. So we have, first of all, Mr. Davrukov Faridin Umarovich, who is Deputy Chairman of the State Committee of the Republic of Uzbekistan for Tourism Development. Next, we would like to welcome Kial Kenjamatova, who is Acting Director of the Tourism Department of the Kyrgyz Republic. Then we will hear from Gulmira Akhbarieva, who is Head of the Tourism Department of the Turkestan region, followed by Gegana Nikolova, who is Regional Director for Europe and Central Asia for the Adventure Travel Trade Association. Next, we will meet Asadsho Zulshuev, who is Director of the PAMI Eco-Cultural Tourism Association. And then we will welcome Zafar Nurov, Chairman of the Zarafshan Tourism Board. After Zafar, we will hear from Gulchekra Israilova, who is Chairwoman of the Association of Private Tourism Agencies of Uzbekistan, followed by Mansur Abilayev, who is President of the Kyrgyz Association of Tour Operators. Next, we will welcome Elena Kalashnikova, who is Director of Aksai Travel Company from Kyrgyzstan, and Almas Maratuli, founder of Limon Travel Company from Kazakhstan. Next, we will welcome Baurijan Shalabekov, who is the founder of TenTech from Kazakhstan. And finally, we will hear from Dennis Keen, who is the founder of walkingalmaty.com. All of the panelists who are joining us live here today. We also have some presentations which have been pre-recorded by tourism experts, and these are available on the Central Asia Trade Forum website. These include presentations from the Adventure Travel Trade Association, UNWTO, IndyGuide, Wide Oyster, Lonely Planet, World Travel Market, and the OECD. And I do recommend you check them out as they cover a wide range of current industry topics and are very relevant for our global tourism recovery. Thank you all. So having made our introductions, I am delighted now to ask each panelist in turn to share their stories in the form of a short presentation which they have prepared for us. I'm going to ask, first of all, Mr. Davrukov Faridin Umarovich to join us and to share with us his presentation. Thank you, Mr. Umarovich. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to participate in this forum. I am very pleased to participate in discussing such an important theme. The government of Uzbekistan, in order to mitigate the negative consequences of COVID pandemic, in tourism sector are undertaking necessary measures to support this sector, to tax exemptions, financial, economic inspections, ban on the tax collection and fines collection, and our President Shavkat Mirziyoyev undertaken necessary orders which stimulate tourism by providing great number of support in forms of loans, grants, and we understand that the process of restoring tourism and travel is a priority task in order to provide safety of foreign tourists during their visits to the Republic of Uzbekistan. With that said, on June 19, 2020, President of Uzbekistan signed an order on additional measures in tourism sector, complying with the higher requirements on sanitary safety. This document states the new system of safety rules in the Republic of Uzbekistan. which will become, it's like a safety cushion for the foreign tourists. Within the system, we created a registry of protected sites, which are part, and the founder of the we created Fund of Safe Travel in order to support the new sanitary safety system. I would like to highlight that the priority task of the committee is to restore the numbers of 2019 and provide sustainable development of the sector. With that said, we have to take into consideration significant changes in demands in the tourist world, due to pandemics, increased number, for example, of tourist groups, some type of tourism like ecotourism, water tourism, medical tourism, and others. Preservation and increased cost of travel, and also demand for new routes for travel and the places for travel. Prior to pandemics, committee paid special attention to improving in tourist infrastructure. We opened new hotels, resorts, and recreation areas, and we diversified the provided products. For example, we created modern family resort Silkway World Class, which has like a beach and some other parks and some other cultural sites and spa. It's oasis type, eastern type, like resort in the desert area, located in desert area. With that said, Republic is paying special attention to develop joint routes, travel routes in Central Asian region. We are sure that tourism is the best way to provide foreign tourists a unique opportunity to dive into the style of life, to feel the culture, national tastes and traditions of Central Asian nations. We have to develop a new cooperation on organizing joint expeditions to study transnational routes in Central Asia. Improvement of the road infrastructure, development of the bus travel routes between our cities, and introducing, a system for comfortable and expedited border crossing of tourist groups, and implementation of the local initiatives for Central Asia at the big tourist markets and exhibitions, and so on. Such cooperation will attract attention of international societies to the Central Asia as a uniform tourist destination. And we think it's going to be beneficial for each country of the region. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Davrukov. You have spoken about the idea of a silk visa to ease visa restrictions for visitors from outside the region, and also to open up accessibility across Central Asia. Is there any planning between Central Asian countries for a unilateral regional policy for visitors with regards to the more complicated issue of COVID restrictions and requirements?
Yes, we are actively cooperating at all levels, trying to resolve these issues. So after the quarantine measures were adopted in the Central Asian region, in order to strengthen also regional cooperation, in order to unite our actions and to in the sphere of restoring the tourism, on the 1st of June of this year, we had an online tourism conference where ministers of tourism of Central Asia participated, and some other regional partners also participated in this conference. And during ministerial meetings, within the frame of the Tourism Council and other international organizations, together with our partners, Central Asian partners, we exchange information and our opinion on the approaches to overcome the consequences of the pandemic. We discussed the joint measures on restoration of tourism and providing safe travel and visits of tourists during post-pandemic period. So we lead constant dialogue with different tourist organizations, and which is directed towards synchronization of our requirements and compliance of the conditions of sanitary hygiene requirements during the visits of foreign tourists at our joint Central Asian tourist market. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Большое спасибо. Thank you. So let's move on now. Thank you very much to Mr. Amarovich. Let's move on now to Kiel Kenjamatova. And Kiel, we would like to invite you to unmute yourself and share with us your presentation, please. Kiel, do you hear me? Yes, good morning. Kiel Kenjamatova, are you there and do you hear us? Okay, we will try just to connect Kiel. If we cannot connect Kiel, then we will move to the next participant. Kiel, do you hear us? Okay, I don't seem to be able to hear Kiel, and I will ask our technical team to see if they can assist us. In the meantime, since we cannot connect with Kiel, let's move Gulmira Akhberdieva. If you are ready, maybe you would like to give us your presentation, and we will try to connect Kiel in the meantime. So Gulmira.
Благодарю, Helen.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I'm ready. Yes, I'm ready, and we can proceed. I welcome you, all the participants of the panel session, which is dedicated to tourism. I am very grateful to organizers for inviting me to speak, to participate. I start my presentation. We are in Turkestan city, Turkestan region, oblast, which in 2019 so the capital of the region was actually shifted to Turkestan, and Turkestan became the spiritual capital of Central Asian region. So we know that tourism, becomes a priority area for the national economy development, and it's not a secret that tourism is a perspective and effective instrument of the national income growth, especially for the countries which has favorable climate conditions, recreation capabilities, cultural historical monuments, and tourism becomes, in this regard, becomes as means of improving life of people, is a factor for developing friendly relations between the countries and understanding between nations, strengthening friendship between the countries and nations. And we think that sphere of tourism in Kazakhstan has to be developed, and with the active support of the of our governments. We have the joint understanding and our joint history, culture, traditions, similarity in languages, and all this unites us in one thing in Central Asia.
Our countries possess unique tourist resources. They have a great potential in developing this area industry because these are the regions with rich historic heritage that preserve Eastern traditions, ancient culture, unique nature, which cause and arise a genuine interest on the part of the tourists. Central Asia, being at the crossroads of all the main land roads in the Eurasian region, has always acted as a communication corridor between the cultures of East and West, Europe and Asia, and is the motherland of Asian civilizations. And we believe that the restoration of cooperation and tourism between Central Asian countries has a unique and presents a unique opportunity to assist each other in obtaining and gaining economical gains and contributing to ensuring fair and well-balanced economic growth of all countries, where the involvement of the private sector is the key to success. For example, in December 2019, in Almaty, during the first workshop on tourism, the Business Association, a community of 4 countries, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Turkmenistan, signed an agreement on cooperation in tourism and on creation of the tourist product tourism ring of Central Asia. And they've developed a joint 13-day trip along the Tamerlane's following Tamerlane steps. By doing this, tourism companies can create a lot of different trips for Central Asia, where tourists can visit several countries at once. That would include gastronomical tours, historical tours, cultural tours, the Great Silkway tours, and all this agreement will combine the market, develop relations in a friendship nature and in the environment of friendship, and will position our countries and provide our countries with a toolkit of necessary instruments. During the workshop on facilitation of cooperation of tourism companies in Central Asia, businesses proposed creating a tourism council in Central Asia using the example of Southeast Asian Tourism Association and start forming one unified information network in tourism business. And considering all these favorable factors that I just listed for joint formation development of a regional product and expanding the interaction of cooperation in tourism between our countries, there are certain challenges that require mutual solutions on the intergovernmental level. Number one is simplification of border crossings, and this is what my colleague from Uzbekistan just mentioned. A unified visa, which is a unique opportunity for all of us. Development of the transportation, that's number 2. Development of transportation information communications. Number 3, introduction of unified standards for tourism services, unified system of professionals training in tourism. Number 4, coordination methodologies and collection and processing of statistical data in tourism, which is currently not available. Number 5, formation and creation of competitive tourism product in Central Asian countries and joint promotion of those products on the international level. Number 6, formation of the unified database on tourist possibilities of the Central Asian countries. Dear participants of the panel session, with the potential and capability and ability and considering the cultural closeness and geographical location of our countries, the interregional cooperation on tourism development among Central Asian countries will contribute to an increase of its international recognition at the international arena. But the most important thing is the interaction in the tourism area between our countries, cities, and regions calls for strengthening trade, economic, and cultural and humanitarian links through joint promotion of tourism and active development of further cooperation among businesses. We have to demonstrate to the whole world how friendly we are as neighbors and how we've been throughout centuries. And it's not. It is for a reason that that they say that we make friends ourselves and our neighbors are given by God, and we have to take this God's gift. And I would like to thank you for your attention. With that, I'd like to complete my presentation.
Gulmira, thank you very much indeed. You have described the importance of tourism as a key economic driver and also highlighted its value as a tool for the protection of heritage and cultures, and the value of collaboration between countries which share similar histories. Can you identify one of the main challenges facing your department right now with regards to regional collaboration in tourism, not including visas and COVID restrictions?
I think that there is no unified promotion of services. There's no unified platform, specialized platform for the market specialists. I think this is one of the most important priorities. There's problems that are already listed that we're faced with right now, and I would like to once again reiterate that there is no unified approach in promoting services. There's no unified touristic product for Central Asia. Having unique features, being similar in terms of traditions and history, we still don't have this unified product.
Thank you very much, Gulmira. Большое спасибо. Thank you for joining us. So we will ask now Kiyalken Shamatova to join us again. I believe that she had some technical issues. Kiyal, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you well, and thank you very much. And I do apologize. Because we had some technical problems, but we did manage to figure it out. And I am with you now. And can I start?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Thank you, Ms. Haley. Thank you. And I would like to greet all the participants of today's trade forum in Central Asia. I'm also happy that we did get a chance to meet again today, and we have this unique opportunity to discuss issues of restoration of for future development of tourism in the new realities. And we all know that 2020 has not been an easy year for all of us. And the ongoing outbreak of the coronavirus infection, COVID-19, along with other states, impacted the Kyrgyz Republic as well, particularly the tourism sector that we're discussing right now, and which is the most important sector and priority sector of the economy. We've been seeing a sharp decline in the demand among the population, the decline in development, and we've been thrown back several years, and unfortunately, but also private business trips that we planned within the tourism sector, all the production links, the interruptions in supplies that were planned and scheduled several years ahead in advance for our tourists, for foreign tourists wishing to or willing to visit Kyrgyzstan. Everything's been stalled. We used to have about 5 to 8 million tourists arriving to the Kyrgyz Republic. For example, if you look at the last year, based on the 2019 end-year results, the number of foreign tourists who visited and who were classified as under the WTO were accounted for 8.5 million foreign tourists, and the total number of border crossings with the Kyrgyz Republic accounted for 14 million people, including people from Kyrgyzstan as well who traveled abroad. the modern tourists travel independently, and they love and they prefer to travel independently because modern needs of tourists, of citizens, and people who would like to have to go on vacation, it's ongoing. And in 2019, our experts accounted for 613 million, and investments were $400 million, and the gross added value of 430 million. Unfortunately, 2020 has demonstrated a loss of about 80% of all those indicators that I just mentioned. The tourism sector on the global market plays a very important role, and the tourism sector has a lot of other important economic sectors that are interrelated with, such as transportation, for example, transportation communications, airline communications, land communications, and on top of that, business, full private entrepreneurship in the field. And unfortunately, this year, the tourism facilities and entrepreneurs in tourism, unfortunately, have bared a significant loss this year. And the state has undertaken a number of measures to stabilize social and economic situation in the country, but at the same time to support the tourism sector. Because of the pandemic that we're having this year, on the intergovernmental level, countries continue to undertake measures, different types of measures, for example, on restoration of the sector. For example, in the beginning of the year, so we did conduct a wide-scale work on returning our. There was a massive work that we conducted in making sure that we could return our people who were all over the world back to the country, and that was not an easy task. When the pandemic started, all our citizens were at a loss, really. And despite that, we realized that we hired charter flights and we did everything we could to make sure that we could safely return our tourists home. Similarly, similar actions were implemented with our neighboring countries, with the countries of Central Asia. I can also say that according to the law that was enacted this year, in April of this year, on the 3rd of April 2020, our country, the taxpayers in our country are could provide an application to the tax authority asking for a waiver or a postponement of tax payments, and that was very important because tax debts were generated as a result of the consequences of force majeure, and companies couldn't pay it, and they could actually apply for an extension for up to 1 year. Starting on the 1st of June this year, the country resumed the tourism activities, and because of that, the Ministry of Culture, Information and Tourism, together with the Ministry of Health, have developed and approved requirements on introduction of conducting and tourism activities and the environment of elevated risks related to COVID-19. And this resolution was approved on the 29th of May. And starting on the 1st of June, it was enacted. And the tourism sector started its operations in new realities with new requirements on maintaining and observing sanitary norms and requirements. And these requirements were distributed among the representatives of the tourism business, and they were also published on different websites of different ministries and mass media. I should also emphasize that there were new requirements imposed with regards to managers and managers of hotels, different hospitality businesses, and every requirement for each facility was tailor-made. And on top of that, our tour operators and tourism activity subjects and entrepreneurs in tourism as well, they, despite the fact that the Kyrgyz Republic is a relatively young country and has become independent, became independent quite recently, but we can be proud of having such a well and quickly developing sector of tourism, and which can demonstrate sufficient development and can build plans for the future, having its own strategy, and enter the international market, tourism market. In the end of June, on the 26th of June, we developed an algorithm of actions on accepting foreign tourists. We really wanted to see, the Kyrgyz Republic really wanted to see foreign tourists in the country who planned to visit Kyrgyzstan, and we wanted to open up borders as soon as we could. And we developed an algorithm of actions for people arriving by plane and by land. And the algorithm that was developed was based on the it looked through all the steps of the way from arriving to the airport, for example, all the way to its point of arrival. But in June and July, unfortunately, we couldn't open up the borders, and the country couldn't open up the borders. And on the 21st of August, the Kyrgyz Republic did manage to open up the borders for a number of countries that could, which had a very good epidemiological situation. Initially, it was 31 countries, and then on the 1st of September, this list was added with Republic of Uzbekistan, and then Hungary recently, and today there are 33 countries, people from 33 countries that can visit our country. In addition to that, today we are working together with the tourism sector and with international development partners on adoption and developing the action plan aimed at restoring the tourism sector. And of course, I can say a lot and talk a lot, and unfortunately, I'm limited on time. And if you have any questions, I am willing to take them, and I'm ready to take them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kiel. And yes, I know everybody has a lot they would like to talk about, so we will try to give as much time as possible at the end for some discussion, if we can. Kiel, thank you for sharing the support and recovery plan for Kyrgyzstan's tourism industry. Just briefly, when working with your counterparts in other Central Asian destinations, is there one clear strategy which is common to all of you for recovery of tourism in the region?
The region of Central Asia is a strategically important region for the tourism development that has a huge potential, and we would like to very much in the times of digitalization, we would like to send a number of our proposals to our neighboring countries, to a number of countries in Central Asia in terms of our proposals on reviving the tourism sector that would, first of all, includes digitalization. And within that digitalization process, we would like to, for example, develop the 3D map of the region, to conduct 3D guide tours on regional routes. And of course, we have a huge specifics to this region, which is the Great Silkway, and we would like to develop joint tourism projects that would involve the Great Silkway and propose them on the market together with our neighbors. In addition to that, we would also very much like to work together with on development of unified norms and regulations for people arriving to these Central Asian countries in the new times, because we, as I said, the Kyrgyz Republic opened up borders with a number of countries, but unfortunately each country has its own regulations which do not allow for implementation, or for their citizens, which do not allow their citizens to actually travel to other countries or arrive to the territory of Kyrgyz Republic as tourists.
And our neighbors are working in this regards to resolve these issues. Besides, during this new realm, in this new realm, we would like to adopt this joint program in the conditions of this new times. To restore tourism in Central Asian countries. Besides, we need to harmonize legislation in our countries. So this regulatory base should be harmonized to develop tourism sector in future in Central Asia. At acceptable
Thank you
level.
very much, Kial. It's been a pleasure to listen to you, and thank you for your time, and I'm glad we were able to get you back. So moving on, thank you. I would like to you're welcome. Spasibo vam. I would like to welcome next Gagana Nikolova from the Adventure Travel Trade Association. And Gagana, thank you for joining us, and yeah, please share your story with us.
Thank you very much, Haley. Good morning, everyone, and it's a great honor to be here with you this morning. It is really heartbreaking to hear the devastating impact of COVID-19 in Central Asia, and I hope that I'll be able to share some opportunities for recovery through adventure travel. As you already heard, my name is Gergana Nikolova, and I'm the Regional Director for Europe and Central Asia for Adventure Travel Trade Association, or ATTA as we call it for short. Who we are established in 1990, and the Adventure Travel Trade Association is the largest global network of adventure travel leaders. Our community is made up of 30,000 individuals who share a belief and commitment to sustainable tourism. These are guides, tour operators, tourism boards, lodges and accommodations, media, any service provider or destination expert. So basically the entire supply chain is represented in our organization. And what is adventure travel? It is a mix of cultural exchange, immersion in nature, and physical activity. Whereas in the past, adventure travel was understood to be a risky undertaking, these days travelers say their motivation for adventure travel are an expanded worldview, challenge, time in nature, learning, and so on. They're seeking mental and physical wellness, novel and unique experiences and challenges, whether physical or cultural, and oftentimes transformational. And I'm sure that you all can identify yourselves with your destinations within the description of adventure travel. The adventure travel market is worth at least $683 billion per year, and it is thought to be one of the fastest growing sectors of the tourism industry. Obviously, these numbers are pre-COVID. It is estimated that 65% of what adventure traveler spends stays in the local destination compared to other types of tourism, where this number is around 15%. Adventure travel is attracting attention from national and regional governments around the world for its emphasis on economic benefit to rural areas and celebration of the local culture, and because it can often be developed within the constraints of existing infrastructure. Nowadays, during COVID-19 pandemic, adventure travel is identified to be among the first one to recover due to its specifics in spending time in outdoors, being close to nature, spending time with close ones, um, and but in place where you are likely not to be surrounded by others. So um, widespread, again, very good fit for Central Asia, and it is important also for rejuvenating people. With the great potential that Central Asia has for adventure travel, with its incredibly rich culture, well-preserved nature, a lot of space, diversity, mountains, rivers, lakes, deserts, steppes, protected areas, and so on. Of course, not also to mention the climate, which offers quite rich offerings during the 4 years of the season. It is important to think about, to consider about it, to consider focusing on adventure travel. And definitely, I hope that Central Asia will continue, as I have already started collaboration on behalf of ATTA with some of the Central Asia destinations to develop and to strengthen its positioning on adventure travel. Um, this is from me for now. I hope I was able to give you a brief background of who we are, what we do, the opportunities that adventure travel offers for destinations and specifically for Central Asia. Thank you for now, and this is the end of my brief presentation.
Thank you very much, Gagana. So it's been my personal pleasure to work with Gagana as part of the ATTA team on several projects in the past few years. And for those of you who do not know the work of the ATTA, I can highly recommend that you connect with them. Gagana, before you go, is there one key piece of advice that you would give to businesses or to widen their adventure travel offer, given that this sector is indicated, as you said, to be one of the first to recover after the pandemic?
Thank you, Haley, for the nice words. That's a good question, and actually, I would like to address this both to the businesses and the destinations. To understand the adventure traveler needs and expectations and start building the offering and the entire journey, the experience based on this essential information about the profile and expectations of the adventure traveler. Know that they prefer to travel in small groups. Sometimes, as we already heard, there's a trend for independent travelers. They would ask for a tailored itinerary. They anticipate real, authentic taste of the destination. They prefer to spend time with the locals. And most of the time, they spend in remote or rural areas. They do not necessarily look for a high level of comfort, luxury, although after a few days of active physical activities like hiking through some of the famous Central Asian hikes, they wouldn't definitely mind a nice, comfortable bed. It is important to focus that cleanliness and hygiene, especially nowadays, are non-negotiable. So this is important to focus on. So to summarize, dive deep into the understanding of the client, identify your specialty, whether it is the destination or the unique offering by a business, and stay true to it. Collaborate with your neighbor. We heard already several times conversations about cross-border products and offerings, unified systems, ease of border crossing. These are very important as the traveler is attracted to visit multiple destinations, although each of the countries has a lot to offer. While the product is being developed and fine-tuned, it is important also to focus on safety and risk management. This would mean to focus on the development of the necessary legislation and to train the industry to meet the global standards for safety. Before I end, I just want to mention that there is an ISO standard for adventure travel safety management system. So this is an important base to be taken into consideration when planning to attract adventure travelers. I don't know if this counts as one advice. I hope that this was useful information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gegana, for joining us this morning. So we will move on as we need to get everybody time to speak. And I'm going to ask Assacho Zulshoev to join us now. Assacho, can you hear us?
Yes, yes.
You're welcome. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for giving this opportunity to me. I am Assacho Zulshoev, the Executive Director of Pamir Aquaculture Tourism Association. It is my pleasure to welcome everyone to my brief speech about tourism opportunity and challenges in Pamir Mountains region of Tajikistan. Tajikistan and the Pamir Mountains made for explorers. Tajikistan is a landlocked country in Central Asia that borders with Afghanistan, China, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and up to 93% of the country covered by mountains. In order to promote all this opportunity, the Pamir Aquaculture Tourism Association was established in 2008 by great support of Aga Khan Foundation. And from that year, we started to promote the tourism opportunity of our region in out of the country. The main purpose of this association is to contribute the elevation of poverty in the way that it's not only affected, but also for sustainability. The aim was mean to be achieved through building capacity among poor section of population in the remote mountain village of Pamir Mountain region. The main role of PECTA is working with the wide segment of society that are willing to work in the tourism industry, which includes young men, women just graduated from university and planning to set up new business in the sphere of tourism, single mothers, owners of homestay and guest house, people from remote and poor area working as a porter, guides, tour operators, translator, and so on. One of the best results from our work is that we have more than 173 homestays in our region, and 90% of these owners are women, which have opportunity to get benefit and to feel their family. And our next point was that how we can bring more people to this tourist sector. And for that, we started to work with different people who are working in this sector. And we have some main purpose. First of all, bring more local people to tourist business and reduce the poverty rate. The second one, focusing on capacity building of service provided tourist stakeholders. And the third one, it is marketing and promotion, the region as a new tourist destination. In addition, PECTA representative have attended various workshops and conferences in and out of Tajikistan, where they had the opportunity to present the tourism opportunity. From 2014 till 2019, Pamir Mountains of Tajikistan were in the 100 top green destination. It is also a very good opportunity for us to promote the region as a new tourist destination. In the country, we are one of the active association, and from 2018, PECTA became as a member of Consultative Council of Improvement on the Investment Climate under the President of Tajikistan, which is give opportunity for our association to meet new people, new partner organization, and to talk about the opportunities and challenges. As everyone mentioned about the COVID issue to the tourism sector, the Pamir Mountain region of Tajikistan also faced with big problem because this COVID destroyed this sector in this region. But we have chance in that moment to conduct several training for local guides and also for homestay owners, for tour operators. And this year we have conducted several training. We identify new trekking routes and we identify the opportunity for the new village, how we can link them to each other, because the community-based should be linked with each other and the people should get benefit. Additional to that, we are thinking of our regional cooperation, some suggestion, we should strengthen our collaboration between the association, because the association are doing very good job. The purpose of this association is that to bring more people to the sector and to link them to each other. The second one, we want to conduct the cross-border training on intercultural training for the guys, because every guy should know the culture for each other, and they should know how to promote and how to talk about each other. The third one is that we have the mountain region, and currently we have collaborating with Pakistani people and organization, and we want to bring more people to mountaineering, because it can create more job for local people, and it also can be part of the regional cooperation. Additionally to that, we want to create a new strategical plan for the Pamir Mountain region, where we want to include also the cross-border collaboration, because the cross-border partners and tour operators are bringing lots of tourists to the region. Based on their needs and feedback, we want to strengthen our strategical plan for domestic tourism. Additional to that, we are working on marketing and promotion, and we want to promote Pamir Mountain region as a new tourism destination. Also, we're planning to establish the destination market organization in Pamir Mountain region, which can bring all the partners to this link, and we want to work together in order to promote the regional cooperation and also the opportunity of mountain region. It was a very brief speech about Pamir Ecoculture Tourism Association and about our work. Thank you very much. If you have any question, you are most welcome.
Thank you so very much, Asatcho. That was very interesting, and thank you for joining us. You've spoken about the challenges of bringing commercial tourism to the Pamir region. Do you envisage any obstacles in implementing the COVID safety protocols in the local communities? And what message can you give to reassure potential travelers that traveling to more remote areas is still backed by access to adequate medical care if needed?
Okay, thank you very much. It is a very important question. I know, as everyone mentioned about the COVID issue, and COVID, as we can mention, that COVID destroyed this business. It was very badly affected to our sector, mostly to the people who are working in the remote areas. For example, like homestay, guest house, tour operators, guides. But in that moment, we have worked with national government and also with World Health Organization representative and World Tourism Organization and some other partners, and we, as everyone country, were using and following up this new rule and regulation, and keeping the distance, using the mask and washing the hand, and country are waiting for the new rule and regulation from World Health Organization. What can be the new rule and regulation for the tourism of this sector, because it will be very important for everyone. Based on this new rule and regulation, we want to update and the tour package, and after that, it will be more easy for us how to welcome the visitor to the Pamir Mountain region. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again, Asatcho, for joining us. So next, I would like to ask if I can Gulchehra Israilova to join us. Gulchehra, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you well. Good morning, dear colleagues, dear friends. I am glad to welcome you at today's conference. So COVID pandemic negatively impacted tourism industry. So catastrophic decrease of tourist flow made us survive. In order to overcome this period, tourist organizations have to optimize their expenditures. Many of them started undertaking actions to diversify the business and looking for other niches. In order to overcome the consequences of pandemic, the representatives of tourist sector in Uzbekistan Association developed and implemented solutions which allow to decrease the risks and mitigate negative consequences, and also supported initiatives on behalf of the government directed towards support of tourist business. So association members were actively involved in the work of the headquarters of state tourism Department, which provided assistance to foreign tourists who could not timely leave the country. We also supported Uzbekistan citizens who were abroad. At the beginning of pandemic, where among tour operators didn't know what to do and they had panic association. In March, we organized emergency meeting during which we developed the complex of suggestions to minimize consequences of pandemic. So we sent them to the Cabinet of Ministers and State Committee of the Republic of Uzbekistan on tourism development. It's nice to state that most of our suggestions were adopted and implemented. As for restoring tourism sector, the best is countries where a pandemic was not so big and have a sanitary readiness to accept tourists after pandemic. In this regard, the association experts were actively participating in development of project Uzbekistan Safe Travel Warranty or Guarantee.
And the working group at the, as part of the working group at the State Committee of Tourism, this product represents a system of sanitary epidemiological safety based on the international standards. And the Association of Private Tourism Associations of Uzbekistan, in partnership with a number of organizations, launched an action from the bottom of my heart, and the main objective of this activity is to provide support of tourism operators in the country, and the main focus here is on an increase in sanitary and epidemiological protection. And the partner of this action is a Tashkent International Clinic that has more than 25 years of experience in providing primary and emergency assistance to foreign tourists and visitors of Uzbekistan. As part of this activity, the funds of the hotels in Tashkent, Bukhara, and Samarkand received antiseptics and disinfectants, and this activity covered about more than 50 hotels, and the pandemic formed a new reality that is going to stay with us after the constraints are elevated. And the experts of the industry believe that the crisis is a good moment for us to form and develop and to launch new products and new projects. And with that regards, the association, during the pandemic, continued to work on implementing joint international projects. For example, our new project, a model for sustainable tourism in Central Asia, and creation of the potential to increase, to raise awareness and introduce technologies that is being implemented as part of the initiative of the European Union, Switch Asia, is called for increasing the tourism potential of the Central Asian countries. And the strategic objective of the project is to raise ecological awareness and introduce practices and technologies in the hotel and hospitality business in the Central Asian countries. As part of implementation of this project objectives, financial and technical assistance is to be provided to hospitality businesses in providing tools of information communication technologies and knowledge as well. The project is funded by the European Union, is being implemented in the following cities of Uzbekistan that have a high tourism potential, that is Bukhara, Samarkand, Kharazm, and the city of Tashkent. Important areas of the tourism potential development of the country is also development of unique in terms of the content and presentation of tourist projects. And considering the relevancy of this question, experts of the association during the quarantine and lockdown measures developed a project on developing CBT tourism in Uzbekistan by means of increasing professional competencies of rural citizens, and the implementation of this project will create conditions for developing new jobs in business development and business environment development, and raising revenues of rural residents, and will also facilitate implementation of creative abilities of women in rural areas. And this project was supported by USAID, and the project will be implemented in 3 regions, in the Bukhara, Dizak, Samarkand regions that have very high potential in terms of CBT tourism development. Today, our country and its citizens go through a very important test when actions of every one of us will help us to overcome a serious danger that we're faced with. Only by joint and proper actions we will be able to overcome all the dangers and problems and challenges really posed by the coronavirus pandemic. During the lockdown, we're helping those in need. That's why using these consolidated opportunities, representatives of the tourism business of Uzbekistan are trying to contribute to revival and improvement of the situation and to assist as much as we can the tourism sector. Thank you very much for your attention, and that would be the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Gulchakra. Thank you for describing the protocols and the support for tourism industry stakeholders in Uzbekistan during the pandemic. I would like to ask you whether the tour agencies and tourism suppliers are being engaged in local level and government level discussions on how to handle travel in the post-COVID era. And is the private sector, including the local host communities, playing a role in shaping the recovery for the tourism future that they would like to see?
Thank you for your question. The Association of Private Tourism Associations of Uzbekistan was formed in 1998, and it unites tour operators and hospitality business representatives. Today, it is the largest private, non-commercial, non-for-profit organization in Uzbekistan in tourism. And considering the experience of the association, as well as the experience of experts that are members of the association, we are actively participating in development of regulatory documents related to tourism. And today, we are actively working with the State Committee of Tourism, together with the State Committee of Tourism and supported by State Committee of Tourism and other state agencies. We're developing plans, strategies of future development and revival of our industry, of our sector.
Thank you very much, Gulchakra. Thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. Next, I would like to ask Mansur Abilayev to join us. Mansur, do you hear me?
Yes, I do.
You're welcome.
Good morning, dear participants of the forum, and thank you very much. I would like to thank the organizers for giving me a possibility to present and to talk to you today, to talk to my colleagues from Central Asia. And I would like to thank panelists as well for the information that you're sharing with us. It's very interesting. Just a few words in the beginning about our activities. It's the Kyrgyz Association of Tour Operators, and I would also like to talk about the perspectives and threats that we're faced with right now. The Kyrgyz Association of Tour Operators was created in 1999, and currently it has over 40 tour operators, local tour operators. It's one of the largest tours operators in our sector in Kyrgyzstan. As the panelists before me already mentioned, tourism is probably one of the sectors that was most affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And for us, it started with cancellation of ATB, which was conducted jointly with USA DCTG when we planned to attend ITB in Berlin. And the year started with that. After that, it was followed by all those cancellations of trips at the beginning of the season, and then for the whole season after that and up until now, it's not clear to us what are the consequences or what the consequences could be for us for the next year or for the upcoming seasons. What was canceled as well was the workshops that we planned together with our partners and international organizations. Workshops for local tour operators, local representatives of service providers on the market, and a lot of other activities, unfortunately, they get canceled because of lockdown measures in each country. However, we did manage, despite of quarantine, we did manage to complete our guide courses, annual courses for guides, and this year participants of our courses received an received an American certification, and it was one of the positive things this year. And also, we participated in conducting surveys from the World Bank to see to assess the impact of COVID-19 on the tourism sector. That was conducted in the beginning of the year to be able to see a primary or initial impact, and the second phase was conducted in October of this year. And the dynamics shows that a lot of companies, unfortunately, have to send their people to holidays with no pay, and some of them closed down. And if you need that information, I can share it with you. I can give you more detailed results of the study. The Kyrgyz Association of Tour Operators is actively involved in assisting in communications between the state sector and non-commercial and commercial organizations to make sure that we coordinate the work in coordination with each other in overcoming the existing situation posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. For example, together with GIZ, we filmed a series of episodes, short videos for such sectors, for tourism servicing sectors, which measures they would have to adopt to be able to work in the post-COVID era. And we're actively working with our partners developing winter tourism. And the second project is together with CBT and with Civitas is Green Tour, that is where we provide certification of travel life certification for local tour operators to be recognized, for certain tour operators to be recognized during this period. This period is very difficult, but despite that, a lot of tour operators are trying to optimize their internal processes, and possibly some are developing new routes, and we have to live now and to accept the situation as it is and work in advance and preempt the upcoming situation, and with the forthcoming years in mind. The existing situation is very difficult for the country, for the region, and for the world in general, and we don't know yet what... I mean, it's not a secret for anyone that there is no information as to what tourism is going to be like in 2021, and really want to hope that there will be some kind of revival and tourists will start traveling and moving around. And as we see from the winter, we don't know what the situation is going to be like in spring, but based on the theory of risk management, we know that after the big shock, after the industry falls down, the curve looks very severe for the sector restoration. That would take a number of years to be brought back, and a lot of small and medium businesses will be affected by the situation. We hope that those companies that went bankrupt we will not see a lot of serious consequences that will affect the increase in bankruptcy of a lot of companies. And as Golchak Raj just mentioned, For local tour operators, it's a big challenge as well, and a lot of them started diversifying their activities. Some of them started looking for different niches to maintain their staff, to be able to remain active while they're expecting for new tourism seasons. And some people started diversifying their businesses and their markets by providing services. There's not bad without evil. And this year, during the summer season, we did see an increase in new companies who started offering internal routes to develop domestic tourism within the country, and etc. But we are still hopeful that this situation will pass and the joint measures are required. Joint measures are required, and we have to consolidate activities between the state authorities, non-profit organizations, international organizations, and the private sector. And only together and by being on the same page, we would be able to come out of the situation. The Central Asian region will have to work together. All countries in the Central Asian region will have to work together, because when the activities pick up after COVID, after the pandemic, we would be able to respond to these challenges. Thank you very much.
Sir, for your presentation, and yes, we all hope that this situation will be over soon. You have spoken about the Travel Life Certification Program, which is a globally recognized sustainability standard for tour operators and tourist agencies, as well as accommodation providers. What do you see as the key challenge for businesses in the Central Asian region for implementing the Travel Life Standard?
Thank you for your question, Haley. Truth is that Travel Light is a world-recognized certification program, and a lot of challenges for certain tour operators or tour operators in general in Kyrgyzstan or in Central Asia, in the Central Asian region, is to bring in compliance our local standards in compliance with international standards. We conducted 2 workshops for tour operators, and we are we're implementing the 3rd phase right now, and the big challenge is to bring in compliance internal requirements of working with staff, documents, and working with service suppliers, how they should interact, what requirements should be applied on the by tour operators to hospitality service providers, because tourism is not a licensed type of activities in the country. It's not licensed in the country, and there's certificates like that have to exist to ensure our future work and to make sure that we keep up to international standards.
For joining us. So moving on, let's ask Elena Kalashnikova. Elena, do you hear me? Good morning, Elena. Nice to see you. I can't hear you, perhaps if you can just unmute your microphone. Wonderful. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. Go ahead, please. Thank
you. I'm thankful to all of you who was able to get up early. It means you feel real concern to tourism now, and you also attempt to find the exit from nowadays situation. We live in a very interesting time. We have completely lost the opportunity to make any plans to the future or to predict anything. But we have already lived 8 months in the shocked situation of tourism. This fact gives us the opportunity to draw some conclusions. How the tourist mentality has changed. Первое. 1. Tourism stopped to be luxury and started becoming their necessity. After all the lockdown stress, online training, and online work, people actually felt the lack of emotions and the need for communication. Traveling is the easiest and most direct way to feel the immersion need.
Yep.
Awareness and clear understanding of each step of the journey. People need certainly full information on every detail of the upcoming tour will give them confidence. Safety and quality guarantees and hygiene standards ensure the kids need to be under protection and get away from worry about every wrong step, at least during a short tour. Remote places without a large crowd of people, but with a high level of stress, come out from the door. Long state isolation and quarantine made people tired to clean the service for ourselves by our own. People want attention and care for they want to find inner harmony. They don't want to be in crowded places. Communication with nature has become the most in demand, increasing the emotional value of travel. Experience has shown that only nature was able to return many people to normal psychological state. It's nature that made up for our lost inner lives and gave us a confidence and confidence in the future. New customer segments means new needs. The pandemic changed the schedule of people, and so-called digital nomads have appeared. It's people who combine work and leisure, and their number will only grow. People felt an interest in traveling within the country, and volume of the domestic tourists has increased. After the end of the pandemic, these markets should be developed, improved, and adjusted to the consumer. Let me share with our experience how we are surviving in this situation. Before the pandemic, we launched a unique franchise project as a nomad. The aim of this project is building of glamping, alternative accommodation facilities in remote places. These are interesting for tourism. As you know, glamping is a term comes from two words, glamour and camping. This is glamorous camping. Following the traditions of our country, we have chosen creating a youth camps with 4-5-star hotel facilities. What's the main advantage of this type of accommodation? As a nomad glamping are located in remote scenic places, which give tourists unity with untouched nature. Using glamping sites allows tourists to avoid crowd of people and show the best natural landscapes of the travel country. Acquaintances with the history of the Great Silk Road, getting knowledge about nomadic people, traditions, custom and foundation, gives the tourist emotion and new impressions, which is so necessary today. Accommodation in glamping can satisfy also new tourist standards, such as keeping social distance and hygiene standards assurance. Adaptation of new standards does not require global restructuring. From an economic point of view, there are also quite a number of advantages in creation and usage of this type of accommodation. Firstly, it is a quick opportunity to increase or decrease the number of rooms according to demand. Yurts are easy to add or stop being used without any breaking to overall aesthetic glamping view. This is technically easy to do. Secondly, it is mobility. Glampings can be moved to new location with changes of demand in market. The cost of moving is relatively low. Thirdly, low cost in comparison with the building of hotel and as a result, a faster payback period. With the adoption of new hygienic standards, we got one of the most demanded tourist products in the current situation. In conclusion, I want to say yes, the tourist business is the sector of the economy most affected by the pandemic. And the restriction of tourism as a business largely depends only on ourselves. Tourism will no longer return the way it was before the pandemic. We will need the new tourism. And the restriction of the tourism business depends on how quickly we adapt to new realities, how quickly we can adapt to the new needs of our clients. But the most important things in the whole situation, I want to say again, tourism has ceased to be a luxury. It has become a necessity. And this gives us new opportunities and make us move forward. Thanks a lot. It's the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Elena. Describing the new experiences you are creating with the glamping product. You talk about the psychological stresses brought on by the pandemic and about the fact that time spent in nature can be very healing. Can you briefly give us one or two key elements which you think the Central Asian region has or needs for creating wellness experiences for your visitors?
It's a very interesting question. In the beginning of pandemic, we read a lot what it is, and it was interesting for us. And I read an interesting article of one Korean scientist who said that at the end of after pandemic, and we will be sick, and but the best prophylaxis the best prophylaxis for the next wave from pandemic, it's and in our region, we have a lot of opportunities for that. The healthy way of life is quite important now. And I think that's what we should work on. This is what active tourism, active rest, So, and I can talk about Central Asia and Kyrgyzia. It's a paradise for active time
Thank
spending.
you, Elena. Spasibo большое. Moving on, could we please call Almas Maratuli to join us? Almas, do you hear me?
Yes, I can
Almas,
hear
welcome.
you. Almas. A good day, colleagues. This coronavirus situation and emergency situation with pandemic and quarantine in Kazakhstan significantly impacted tourism business. During emergency situation, the activity of tourist companies was fully banned, and all the national parks were closed, tourist recreational areas were closed, and all the recent events with coronaviruses impacted our sphere very negatively. Kazakhstan, there are thousands of people working in tourism sector lost their jobs or income. After my decision was to leave the building which we were renting. So before pandemic, we had 15 people working in our company, and because there was no work and no sort of tasks and objectives, the decision was made. First of all, unpaid leave. All people went to unpaid leave, and we submitted an application for the government support, which was $100 per month for each people, which government has assigned to people who lost their jobs due to the emergency situation. The second stage, since we're a tourist company in the sphere of national tourism, This year, we didn't have any profit. And the demand in Kazakhstan for tourists happens from March to September. For all the tourist companies, is the most profitable season. Unfortunately, the actual, all the main virus sort of diseases happened during this time and everybody lost their profits, but we have a positive attitude and we want to develop. But after getting over this coronavirus crisis, not everything is going to go back to normal quickly, and there is a whole range of reasons for that. Most of the people lost their jobs. They don't have income, and this led to them utilizing their savings, which probably people were saving to actually go to travel, and that is why it will not be a primary need. And so the drop of prices for oil, a weakened tenge, which also led to decrease of people's savings. But there is also like a positive side to that. There are tourists and people who love winter sports and winter recreation, and it is more profitable for these people to travel to the ski resorts in Kazakhstan or other Central Asian countries, which were much cheaper than in Europe. And at the end, we can say that after the end of pandemic, demand will be different in tourism sector, and that is why all entrepreneurs, in order to develop further and function properly, we need to restructure our work, and we have to change everything to a new approaches, and we have to look to other ways of other solutions. So that's the end of my
Thank
presentation.
you very much, Almas. How do you consider that the Central Asia can market itself as a safe and alternative destination away from the more overcrowded and traditional destinations worldwide? Can you explain briefly one key type of product which would be useful for recovery, in your opinion?
Thank you very much for your question. First of all, in order to become a safe destination to attract tourists, we need political stability, which unfortunately in some countries we do not witness. And I think that alternative to the world destinations, all the landscapes and natural parks of Central Asia can become. And do marketing and advertising by means of the music festivals, to Coachella, for example, with providing acceptable level of service. Also, transit potential countries can also attract tourism, because we are between Asia and Europe, located between Asia and Europe, and to restore Great Silkway. Our speakers were talking about this. In the world, there are a lot of tourists who we have a lot of Chinese tourists, and first of all, we have to pay attention to that, and we should target Chinese tourists to come here. So that's what I think. I must say that talk about Turkestan city. We have all the historic sites, Mausoleum of Yasawi, Aisha Bibi. So in Turkestan region, Oblast, we have a construction boom. And in order to establish a tourist hub of Central Asia, we need to, during 3-5 years, that might happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Almas, for joining us. It was a pleasure. Now I would like to ask Barzhan Shalabekov to join us. Barzhan, can you hear us?
Да, я слышу.
Yes, I can hear you.
I can see you, and we can see your presentation. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Добрый день.
Good day, dear colleagues. I would like to present you our presentation, Innovation Approaches to Development of Tourism During Pandemia. Tourist potential before pandemia, and you know that the World Council for Tourism and Travels. So Kazakhstani tourists spent $1.9 billion. It's 7 million people, and national tourism, $3-4 billion. It's about 5 million people. So the GDP was 5.6%, and investments in the tourism section was $367 million. So that was before pandemic. And in spite of the great tourist potential, Kazakhstan was only 81st from 136 countries on global index. And it was because of 3 reasons. Low level of appearance. That's what Alexander Barnikov said, that I chose Kazakhstan because nobody knows in US. That is why we created False World. But the real Kazakhstan is a wonderful country with a wonderful mountain people, except for this version in Borat movie. And now tourist operators are trying to use in order to promote tourism in Kazakhstan. It's one of the elements. The second thing is the absence of infrastructure. In the remote destinations, sacred areas, and in big megapolises. And the third is the low level of digital elements in the tourism sector. So the main problem of the World Tourism 2020 is the World Council of Tourism Excursions is the loss of the sector will be trillions, and UNESCO museum, 13 museums will be closed forever, for good, and we will receive a loss of up to 75 million workplaces in the tourism sphere. Unfortunately, specialists from the World Health Organization cannot talk about the end of the pandemic, so we don't know when it happens. For us, it's a negative factor. It's a complex factor. And briefly, I can say that about our company. So we're official business partner of Facebook on Oculus program and the first Microsoft program network and development of solutions of Microsoft Hours for the FSU countries. And we are working on this for the last 4 years. In 2018, tech company developed an application, and the users can actually, in the real sort of surrounding, could actually see that the world achievements. Also we created a branch for Kazmunagas, and now different organizations can remotely get to this unique industrial sites for like the Caspian region, so like it's a virtual sort of goggles, sorry. And 2019, so we submitted an application in DAI fund, and we started implementing the new ASAR project. And besides, in 2020, together with Kazakh Geography, we worked on 2 projects, historical roles in the format 360 3D about the citadel Shymkent and tourist 3D map of Shymkent city. And I will talk about ASAR. That's a mobile sort of guide for tourists. It's a navigator, off and on navigator for travel in Kazakhstan, which is built on the 4 key processes: attraction, planning, travel, and emotions. So we use the identification and the digital technologies. You can see 3D 360 using VR goggles, and you can look at Bayterik right inside of your room and actually make a picture, with this monument. So it can allow you to plan for the details of your travel, choose the tour operators, and so on. You can plan your own route. You can book your own tickets and hotels, receive, the information about the visa regimes and other useful advices for your travel. So the tourist travel can cause excitement, and it will allow not only receive the positive emotions, but promote our users to come back to Kazakhstan for new emotions. And we understand the pandemic and the isolation. There's a time. It's just a temporary thing, So innovation technologies, innovation instruments which allow tourists to actually remotely visit different destinations were promoted. And we see ASAR in the future as a useful navigator for tourists to visit not only Kazakhstan but other Central Asian countries. And the application should become an assistant for the travelers and a useful tool for people who cannot travel using immersion, just adding their technology into reality in order to learn about different destinations. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much indeed, Barzhan. Thank you for describing the technology and innovations in advancing both virtual and physical travel to the region. You've commented on the Borat campaign. Could you define in one phrase or sentence your idea of a collective brand or tagline for Central Asia, something which defines the overall experience which international visitors can expect?
That's a good question. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think that unique and very attractive. Central Asia is very attractive, you know. So that was the short option of a brand, you know.
Thank you, Barzhan. That's very, very good. Thank you for joining us. And I would like to ask now Dennis Keen to join us. Dennis, can you hear us?
Hi, I can hear you well.
Thank you very much, and we can see you. Go ahead, Dennis.
So first, just thank you for having me today. It's been really fascinating to meet so many colleagues virtually and to hear so many fascinating ideas about tourism in Central Asia. A little bit about myself. My name is Dennis Keen. I've been working in tourism in Kazakhstan for 5 years now. I'm the founder of Walking Almaty, which is originally a blog about architecture and urban landscape in the city of Almaty in Kazakhstan, and now the main walking tour provider in our city. I've also done quite a bit of consulting in the tourism sphere, including with USAID. And most recently, I've been involved with a tourism campaign from Kazakh Tourism called Very Nice, that I'll be talking a little bit about. I want to start out by saying that, you know, long term, Central Asia is a very exciting place to work in tourism. It's a place that's full of promising opportunities to corner niche markets and establish interesting brands. You know, I just came to Istanbul for the winter, and I was meeting with some tourism professionals here, and they were complaining to me about how it's been tough here over the last few years, that they reached a peak in 2013, 2014, and since then they've really struggled to reach those numbers. And one thing you can always say in Central Asia is that the future is bright, is that year upon year, the region receives more and more visitors. And I've seen that in my own practice in Almaty. So there's reason to be an optimist long term, that as soon as the pandemic is over, and it will be over one day, that there will be brighter future ahead. What's interesting about working in Central Asia is that if you are a small business person like me, especially someone coming from abroad, there's so many opportunities to really start something new. So when I started Walking Almaty, for example, nobody in Kazakhstan had really focused on the segment of walking tours. But it turns out that Almaty is actually a brilliant place for walking tours. There was a lot of demand, and the format took off really quickly. So I think that it's, I hope that my example can kind of serve as inspiration for others, that if you have a good idea, if you're willing to explore a new format, Central Asia is an amazing place to experiment and to try something new. Short term, of course, we all recognize that the next year is going to be another quiet year for tourism. But I'm trying to see that as an opportunity to stop and to recalibrate, to tweak our brands, to experiment with new approaches. Because of course, during the quarantine, a lot of people have limited abilities to travel, but people have time to dream and to think about what they want to do after the quarantine, to start working on expanding their bucket list. And so this is that really, really interesting window of opportunity where we can try to get into those people's dreams, we can try to get onto their bucket list. And that's what we try to do with our Very Nice campaign. So this was a project that I initiated personally about 2 months ago now. When I saw that the new Borat movie was going to be premiering, I realized that this was something that was kind of a blessing and a curse for Kazakhstan. Of course, the film is seen by many as being quite offensive towards Kazakhs and Kazakhstan, but at the same time, it's something rare for a Central Asian country to be on the minds of people around the world. And I realized that with Borat, people were going to be talking about Kazakhstan, whether we like it or not. So there should be some way to constructively utilize this hype. So we conceived, wrote, produced a short tourism video where we took Borat's catchphrase, "Very nice," and we pitched it as kind of the new slogan of Kazakh tourism, Kazakhstan's official tourism board. And we were really pleased with the response. So within a few days, the video racked up almost 1 million views. It was written about in the New York Times, BBC, almost every major media outlet in the world. And I think it spoke to an interest in Kazakhstan because people saw this video, which highlighted real images of Kazakhstan's nature, of its cuisine, of its people and its hospitality. And they said, I had no idea. And this is something that we kind of have to remind ourselves sometimes in Central Asia, because we spend so much time in the region falling in love with it, that many people outside of Central Asia don't know that much about the area and didn't know that much about Kazakhstan. So we have an ability now during this quiet moment to really start thinking about our brand and start thinking about marketing opportunities. The tourists will come back eventually, but they're going to come back with new priorities. And that doesn't mean that we just have to think about the hygienic measures that some of our other speakers were talking about. Of course, that's an important part. But what I want to drive home is that we have to be thinking about the psychology of these potential visitors too. You know, how are they going to be approaching their travel in a different way? What are they looking for, and how can we provide them with that experience? So other speakers today talked about, you know, the appeal of outdoor tourism. I think Elena said that one of the best kind of treatments for this kind of pandemic is to get outdoors. So I think she's exactly right that we should lean into a brand that emphasizes the unique assets of Central Asia, which is really these wide open spaces. Because I think psychologically people have spent a lot of time the last few months holed up inside, and they want room to breathe. They want some place to explore and a place that feels safe. So I was thinking about this because I did a tour a few weeks ago with a driver in Kazakhstan, and we were driving through the Kazakh steppe, and I looked out at the horizon and there was just nothing. You couldn't see a single person, you couldn't see a single settlement. And I kind of took this deep breath of relaxation and I said, wow, this is really amazing. This really feels remarkable. And our driver said, you know, Dennis, we have a word for this kind of place, for this kind of space. In Russian, we call it prostor. And I learned that prostor means something like wide open spaces. We don't really have one word for this in English. But I think it really perfectly summarized what Kazakhstan has to offer, that some might see as kind of a downside, is that, oh, it's a lot of empty space. But when you've been holed up inside an apartment for months on end, a lot of empty space starts to sound really appealing. Psychologically, it actually has a lot of appeal. And so I think we need to start thinking about those things that we can really lean into, you know, because people are going to be looking for things like decompression, escape, novelty. They want something new after so much of the same for the last few months. They want connection. They want to make human connections. They might be more interested in traveling over land versus traveling by plane. So there are certain kind of brand attributes that I think all of us should be thinking about. And Very Nice was one example of how we can try to kind of change the conversation And I think it's going to be really exciting to talk to my colleagues here about how else we can start to try to pitch Central Asia as the perfect post-COVID destination. So thank you. That's some of the things I want to talk about today. And I'm looking forward to hearing your questions and talking to you all later.
Thank you very much, Dennis, for your presentation. As a foreigner working in an adopted country, do you find that your branding recommendations and ideas are in synergy with how the region sees itself? And also, you're talking about the prostor, the wide open spaces, decompression and escape. So aside from being very nice, how else would you summarize the Central Asia region in one collective tagline or message?
Yeah, so you asked if my branding recommendations sync with how the region sees itself. You know, I'm an outsider, so before, you know, I tend to have a much different outlook than a lot of tourism officials in Central Asia. You know, so for example, with my project Walking Almaty, with another project I have, Monumental Almaty, I have a lot of focus on the tourist appeal of Soviet cities, whereas most locals tend to not really see the appeal of their cities. For them, the appeal is to get out into nature, is ecotourism. I get that. But I've been long kind of a big booster for the fact that many tourists from the West, particularly, find Soviet culture and Soviet architecture and Soviet cities to be fascinating. So previously, that was kind of this, I would say, difference. That's some distance that I had with local officials in how I see the region. But in the coming years, I understand that it's a lot harder to pitch the urban experience, right? Because people are going to be a lot more hesitant to be in crowded spaces. Instead, they're going to be looking for that prostor, those wide open spaces. So I think that it should really, any kind of tagline or message should really emphasize those vast distances, the fact that there are relatively few people, relatively few tourists, that you have a lot of space for yourself. So one tagline I thought could be something like Central Asia, room to breathe. Some kind of brand that's emphasizing its remoteness, but maybe then also kind of highlighting its connectivity, its history on the Silk Road. So like Central Asia, the middle of nowhere, but the middle of everything. So I like approaches that try to be a little bit playful, that try to kind of think more about the international perspective on Central Asia and try to take that and to build an interesting brand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dennis, for joining us. I'm sure it's interesting for everybody listening to hear the perspective of somebody from the outside. It gives a different angle on everything. I would like to thank everybody for joining us today, for taking time to prepare with us all. And I hope that this session has been useful for everybody. We really thank you for coming. And on behalf of Central Asia Trade Forum and USAID and all of the Central Asian governments who've been involved, we hope that this exchange of ideas and you know, hopes for the future has given you some opportunities to connect afterwards, online and offline, to make new connections together. And that this forum will provide you with some ideas and thoughts on how to work together to overcome the situation that we're in. And we will overcome it and we will recover. And let's use this time to as an opportunity to come back stronger. I wish you all the very best. And thank you again for all your time and for joining us today. Thank you.
Спасибо.
Спасибо.